Hello, everybody. This is Dirk Schimpa with goVirtualOffice, and we wanted to take the opportunity to kind of give some of our clients a sneak peek and a look at NetSuite SuitePeople for HR and Payroll. I want to introduce Julian and David from NetSuite. They'll be the ones actually walking you through and kind of educating you and telling you a little bit more about SuitePeople. Julian, David?
Great. Thanks, Dirk. Well, welcome everybody. Really excited about today. As Dirk mentioned, the focus of today is SuitePeople HR and payroll solutions. So really looking forward to running through everything A to Z around the SuitePeople solution. So we're going to start with a few PowerPoint slides, jump into a demo, and then finish up with a Q&A session. So with that being said, let Julian and I go ahead and introduce ourselves.
Hello, everyone. My name is Julian Scott, and I am based in Denver, Colorado. I have worked for a variety of companies over the last 12 years, solutioning for different HR and payroll providers. So I come to NetSuite as an industry principal. I work strictly on the SuitePeople side of things and helping our partners to share SuitePeople out to all of their customers. So I'll be running through the demonstration today and hopefully answering any questions that you might have at the end of today's demonstration.
Thanks, Julian. And hey, everyone, David Benavidez, SuitePeople Channel Sales Executive. So what that means is I work hand in hand with the GBO team on any and all SuitePeople opportunities. Just some quick background on myself. Always been in the payroll and HR space, so started my career at ADP, also worked at Paychex, and prior to coming to the NetSuite side, I was on the Oracle side selling Oracle HCM Cloud. So quite a bit of knowledge in the space, be either that I worked at a company that you're most likely leveraging today, or a lot of familiarity with the solution. So really excited to go through this presentation and demonstration and hopefully working on some opportunities that we can help your businesses as well. So with that being said, let's just kick it off with the safe harbor. This may look familiar. Obviously, everything that we're going to go through today is really just general product direction, right? So it's for information purposes only. So I'll leave this up here for a few seconds for everyone to read through. Alrighty, so just to kind of kick things off, I wanted to kind of talk high level of the marketplace when it comes to the HR and payroll side. So there's a lot of challenges in your day-to-day, right? But obviously with the current state of the market, with everything that's going on, those challenges are exacerbated, right? So just wanted to kind of put three stats up there in terms of managing your employees. So the first one is the number of hours that we see organizations spend reconciling their information, right? I mean, it's 367 hours a year. I mean, you kind of can quantify that, and it's a big number, right? So there's a lot of disparity out there. The workflows, the approvals, et cetera, they're not streamlined, right? There's a lot of custom things going on. So the ability to have an HR and payroll solution act as that single system of record when you add it onto your ERP system with NetSuite, it just makes sense, right? It just makes sense from a streamlined capability standpoint. It makes sense from a consistent user experience standpoint, and it's really going to eliminate that disparity and make your organization run as efficient as possible. And then the second one, and this is probably one of the biggest pieces nowadays, is the disengagement of employees, right? So, I mean, you see it, more than 3 out of every 4 employees, feels disengaged, right? So, whether that's, something from day one, right, from the onboarding process where, an employee's onboarding process isn't very smooth, and obviously nowadays it's remote. So, making sure that day one, experience for an employee is positive, right? Because, studies have shown that getting that employee from day 1 to day 90 is not easy, right? So we want to keep them at day 91 and beyond. So having a positive onboarding experience from the very beginning is crucial. And we'll talk more about how SuitePeople is going to be able to assist with that. And then from a recognition standpoint, right now employees, they want to feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves, right? So the SuitePeople solution, has the ability for employees to give kudos, right, or receive kudos, if they are doing a good job. They just want to obviously have the ability to, make sure that your employees, are able to consistently improve. If the employees are consistently improving, they're more engaged, and it's going to lead to a better work environment and a more positive experience for your customers as well. And then just from a self-service standpoint, the ability for the employees and managers to be able to do their day-to-day tasks on their own, right? Instead of pinging HR, instead of pinging payroll, for questions left and right, the ability for these self-service items to be taken care of, anytime, anywhere by those employees or managers is going to help, again, streamline that entire processes on the back end for an organization. And then from an analytics standpoint, we see 1 out of every 2 HR analytics is hard, right? We want to make that process easy. So, the ability to give trends, right, when it comes to headcount, the KPIs, the ad hoc reporting. What you're going to see today is the ability for SuitePeople, to completely streamline that entire process and provide those drill down analytics into the organization. So let's talk about SuitePeople, right? So we kind of look at it as 5 different pillars, right? So, you're going to have your HR administration. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. The org structure, directory, who's who, where do they sit, that employee profile, if you will. Your workforce management, right? That's when you start to talk about benefits tracking, comp, planning, time and absence. And the middle one, highlighted for a reason, right? We talked about this in the last slide, is the engagement piece, the workforce engagement piece, right? The recognition, performance management, onboarding, and then payroll, right? Payroll, pretty straightforward, being able to cut all the taxes, do the filings, quarterlies, annuals, et cetera, and have that post right to the GL. And then the analytics portion, right? Dashboards, KPIs, et cetera. So SuitePeople Payroll, SuitePeople HR, it's going to cover the full gamut, right, of actually managing your entire workforce. So I think this is a really good visual representation of SuitePeople and kind of how it intertwines within the NetSuite system. So obviously we all know NetSuite ERP is the foundation, right? It's the foundation of everything NetSuite. So the ability to have your payroll and HR system with SuitePeople included in the same system, it's a no-brainer, right? So as opposed to, leveraging an ADP or leveraging a Paychex or a Paylocity or a Paycom, you could go down the list, right? Where that's not a true integration. Can you build something? Can you try to bolt that on? Of course you can, but it makes more sense for an organization to be leveraging the NetSuite product, right? So the SuitePeople system is integrated and intertwined within the ERP system, and it just kind of checks off the boxes of, the integration piece. It's non-existent, right? It's the same system, and obviously that's going to help HR's life become a lot easier. The ability to, access information across the entire suite, and I talked about it before too. Being able to provide a consistent user experience, right? You no longer, are employees or managers or anyone at the organization going to be going in NetSuite, out of NetSuite, pulling reports, pulling data out of NetSuite into NetSuite, et cetera. I mean, all that's gone, right? The disparity piece is completely eliminated, and everything is going to be under one umbrella, one single system of record, one throat to choke, whatever term you want to use. And again, it's going to help make all of your processes streamlined and make that efficiency factor go through the roof. So this slide kind of talks about the value, the true value of the suite, right? So if we kind of look at the financials piece there, again, that's really the backbone of NetSuite and what everything is built on. But then when you add payroll and you add HR, then this can kind of come full circle, right? So just to take the time off management piece, for example, right, located within the HR module. So, the ability for, an employee to go in, request time off, right, that can talk to projects, right? So we can see, hey, we're allocating, make sure that the correct individual, is going to be allocated the correct time off based off of any projects that we have going on, et cetera. Procurement, right, for an employee, onboarding, we talked about at the beginning, making sure that onboarding process from day one is going to be positive if it's correct, right? So by correct, I mean, hey, we need to make sure this employee gets their laptop, or hey, we need to make sure that this employee gets their uniform, or whatever it may be. You know, the ability for, you know, the HR team or the payroll team and or payroll team to be able to procure, you know, the correct pieces of the puzzle, right, for a given employee, and tie that back into the HR, right, tie that back into the employee record. And again, that entire self-service piece of this, where, you know, the employee and the manager are going to be able to check off their own individual or team boxes, et cetera, on their own, at their own leisure, anytime, anywhere, computer, tablet, phone, whatever it may be. It's just going to make, again, your workforce, it's going to make your workforce fast, it's going to make your workforce agile. And again, this is most important and of the utmost importance right now, given that, you know, you have a remote workforce, right? I mean, no longer do you have that face-to-face interaction as much as we would like. So the ability to have these things done on the fly by individuals, you know, from the comfort of their own homes, again, it's just invaluable. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Julian, who's going to run through just a high level. You know, we want to get everyone to have an idea of the HR and payroll system. So I'm going to turn it over to Julian.
Thank you, David. And I will go ahead and grab that screen and start to share. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you setting me up like this, David. Really helps to kind of understand how SuitePeople works together through the rest of NetSuite. So again, today we're going to be covering a little bit about how the HR interacts with the rest of the system as a whole. We'll be covering two sections here today, both HR as well as payroll. So again, leveraging kind of the platform as a whole. When we start off and we come into NetSuite, we start off by logging into our role-defined user access. So just as you have other roles within your NetSuite deployment today, you're going to have similar roles, but designed for HR, for payroll, for managers, as well as for employees. The process is, again, going to be very similar, where rules and roles are going to define what level of access that you're going to have into the system. So, for instance, just because somebody is able to go in and have access to their employee center does not mean they're going to be able to go in and see sensitive HR, sensitive payroll details on all of the employees within the organization. So very secure, making sure that only the correct people see the information that's going to be pertinent to them. So let's start off. Let's touch off on the first touch point that someone's going to have with the system. And for SuitePeople, it's going to be kicking off at onboarding. And onboarding starts at prior to day one. What we have is a series of onboarding checklists and plans that allow for you to create the process and create the flow in order to bring people on efficiently. So let's go ahead and take a look at one that we've already started to build. Not only is it going to be able to have tasks that are assigned to the employee, things like completing your onboarding paperwork or going through and taking a new hire survey, but it can have other tasks that are assigned to other people outside of just the employee. So a great example of this, and David had a chance to kind of start to bring this up, is if you're leveraging procurement or asset management, we can have it so that this can kick off a task to assign a new laptop to this person coming on board. It can even be assigned in negative days or pre-start date so that in this case here, Lee Smith can receive a notification to allocate a new laptop for our employee, Andy Black. Now there's a series of templates that are going to be something that you can pre-create and assign to employees, so it becomes really easy to recreate the process. But Each of these also has the ability to have unique steps that you can go in and start to create. So if it was adding lunch for an employee and you wanted to pick and choose someone outside of their maybe network, maybe it's a leadership person, you can start to assign these tasks out to all of those individuals. And so we can have a cohesive and engaging experience of getting somebody on board within the organization. Now we'll continue to come back to this, but the great thing about it is that all of these different transactions are going to have workflows associated with this process and be able to kick off and let people know that they have a task that's going to be outstanding. And from an HR perspective, we also have an onboarding dashboard. And so I can go in and take a look at each of my employees who's going through this process as we speak. And I can see where they stand. I can see which tasks that they have to complete still, or which task that other individuals within the organization have to complete, when they were completed, and so forth. So it gives us that great transparency to be able to take a live look and see how people are progressing through all of those steps. Now I touch on onboarding because that's going to be the first touch point that someone's going to have with SuitePeople. Now, from an ongoing standpoint, I like to kind of work our way through the employee lifecycle process, meaning I like to start with the employee, we'll move to the manager, followed by HR, and followed by payroll. Now, I land on the employee first because the great thing about this is that with SuitePeople, you're going to receive an employee user license for all of your employees. So now all of the employees will be able to come in, they'll be able to access NetSuite and be able to complete any sort of transactions that they might have. Now the Employee Center, some of you might be familiar with it. You're going to notice that it really starts to expand out and you're going to be able to see a whole host of additional transactions here. I also am going to have my more traditional things, like if you're leveraging expenses or purchases, I'll be able to have access to those details directly here on my homepage. Now, from an employee experience, this is going to be where people come in to start to complete any sort of transactions. There's things like going in and checking out your pay details. So I can take a quick look at my last pay. I can go through and I can take a live look at my check, expand this out, or I can print a copy and this will provide me a PDF version of it. When we're taking a look at the check, you'll see that it's going to be a summary of all of my earnings as well as deductions and everything I received. And I can start to go through and break it down by the different balances that I currently have here. Now we know that payroll is going to be a large driver because people want to come in and they want to check to make sure that everything's correct for them. Some of the other things that people are going to now have access to are going to be things like time off, employee profile, and these are going to be places where employees can come in and start to view their balances. They can request time off. So as an employee, I can come in here, I can see my balances, I can go through and I can see exactly what I have used, what I have to use, and then I can go in and I can start to take a look and view future date of what sort of vacation or time off balances I might have. The great thing about this is that the very powerful rules engine that's going to be at the back of this is going to be able to calculate all of those different unique PTO or time off policies that you might have. And so if I go forward to November 18th, it's going to take into consideration any pending time off requests that I might have, and I can go through the process of starting to request that time. This will then be workflowed up to my manager, and so my manager will have the opportunity to be able to approve or reject this, and they'll even receive an email where they can go through and they can approve or reject it directly from that email. And as I start to request this time off, I can put the reason why, and it will start to let me know if I have any conflicts of time, so other coworkers that might be away. And then that allows for me to be able to kind of make that decision if I need to talk to my manager or have somebody cover. However that process currently works for you, it's something that is going to be replicated here with the time off policy. Now, some of the other things that are also going to be important. So we know we have payroll, we have the ability to update our personal information, we have our time off, but things like company news, being able to share what's going on. It can be challenging to get messaging out to all of your employees right now. So something simple like new handbooks coming out, or highlighting the employee of the month. We have other things like employee directory, where you can go through and you can search for people within your organization, or you can see a live up-to-date organization browser that's going to automatically update based off of your org structure. So if you hire somebody or if you term somebody, it's automatically going to be adjusted, bring that new person in or pull them out of the organization chart here. And then each person is going to have a profile that we can go in and see some just basic information. So this is accessible as an employee, but it's also going to be accessible as a HR or payroll professional or leadership role within the organization. And so I can see just a basic profile, contact details, anything I might need in order to connect with this person. And then finally, the last thing I like to celebrate here is the kudos feature. So if there are people within the organization who are going above and beyond and you want to recognize them, this is a great opportunity to. So I can search for somebody within the organization. I could say, maybe Andy has helped me out with some sort of task, and I can start to give them recognition. Now, some of our customers really love this. Other customers, maybe are not quite ready for it just yet. It's going to be one of those things that has the ability to be able to turn on or turn off based off of your choice. But some of our customers have taken this and they've been able to run reports to see who has received the most kudos in a month, and they recognize that person as the employee of the month. So they make it a little bit more into a game and start to recognize those top performers. And you can see here in this example, we copied one of our customers who recognizes their employees through the usage of kudos. Now, as we continue forward, we'll start with our manager role. And you'll notice that the manager also is going to have access into their own employee center because, again, at the end of the day, they need to be able to go in and check out their personal information, but they're also going to have a manager tab. And the manager tab is now going to open up any sort of tasks that they might have. It could be completing onboarding tasks for their employees, where I can see all of the to-do items that I have, where they are at in progress, and I can go through and I can start to complete those. It might be going in and approving any sort of time off, and I could see this any sort of time off requests that I might have. I'll also have some save searches, so things like time off requests for all of my employees, and the calendar here so I can see employees as they've taken that time off. Finally, outside of being able just to go through and approve or be assigned tasks, we also are going to be able to give managers the access to initiate different tasks within the organization. Now, I mentioned initiate here because these are going to be workflowed for approval, but it can be kicking off processes like a base pay change or promotion or transfer. And a manager can go through and can start this process. Again, this is something that can be stood up or stood down based off of your requirements. But if we had an employee here, in this case, Christian, who we think is, deserving of a compensation increase, I can start to go through and complete this form and submit this. And again, very similar. This is going to be something that's workflowed up for approval through your organization structure. So if it needs to go to leadership, if it needs to go to HR, payroll, however that needs to be workflowed, this is something that can follow your processes to make sure that all of the right people have the ability to be able to sign off on it. Now, from a manager standpoint, they have the ability to be able to go in and also take a look at their employee records. And the final thing that we'll take a look here is just their view of the employee record. This is going to be much more basic. It's going to be much more limited. Now they can go in and see contact details. They can see emergency contacts, see some things about their role, their time off or time that they've entered in. But at the end of the day, this is going to be something that's going to be a very restricted view because that security is going to be applied. We're not going to be sharing sensitive information like a social security number or a bank account information because that's not something that managers need to have access to. So giving the right people the right amount of information to be able to manage their jobs and to manage their employees. Now, as we continue to move to our next role, the next stop on our journey is going to be our HR manager. And we've already started off on this role a little bit because we had a chance to check out that onboarding dashboard. But here we're going to be looking at kind of the broader sense of the entire HR dashboard. This is something day one available out of the box for you. And so you are going to have something that you can start to work with immediately upon go live. Now, that being said, it's very similar to every other aspect of NetSuite. It's very personalizable, so I can go through and I can start to create and add custom details to my dashboard. If there was maybe a analytics report that I had already been working on, I can drag, drop this and set this onto my dashboard and set this up accordingly. So you have the ability to be able to customize. You can take things off if you don't, if this KPI meter's maybe not your favorite, or change it to something else. So you have this, so all of those pertinent reports that help you to drive your business, you can start to build that into your dashboard here and see all that information live. Now we have some things that we've seen best practices for our other customers, shortcuts into key areas within the system. So if we have to go in and make a balance adjustment for one of our employees for their time off, or we want to go in and see a list of all of our employees, I have those capabilities right here at my dashboard. But also looking at other KPIs, so looking at things like active headcount, how this is trending. We can look at it on a month-to-month basis, or we could set this up to look at it on a quarterly or annual basis as well. Starting to take a look at things like workforce demographics. So what is the headcount? How many people do we have in each of our different locations? Or we could break this down by location, tenure, gender, or employee type. So giving you the ability to see exactly how many people you have here today. This is, one of those things that can be an actual challenge that a lot of organizations might struggle with as they're continuing to grow or, adjusting in times. And then again, additional resources. And then, as we mentioned before, onboarding and terminations. The reason we have onboarding and terminations, because from an HR perspective, these are going to be two of the areas that you're going to be interacting, or two times that you're going to be interacting with the employees the most, when someone's coming on board or when somebody's leaving the organization. Just as we saw with onboarding, we are also going to have an offboarding checklist. So instead of allocating out a laptop to somebody, it can let the procurement team know, or the IT person know, that we need to go ahead and we need to collect that laptop for the person who's going to be leaving the organization. Now, with this, there's also going to be a whole host of different reminders. These are some that I have chosen because I think that they have a lot of value. But little things like being able to track employees' anniversaries or birthdays. From an engagement standpoint, it goes a long ways just to send out a quick note saying, hey, we value that you've been here for 6 years, and being able to see when those anniversaries are starting to approach. So making sure you have the tools to be able to stay on top of, the employees' milestones within the organization. Now, all of this is going to be built on the employee record. And so I can go in and I can start to search for my employees. And in this case, if we go in to access Emily, I can start to see all of Emily's details here. And I can go through I can go through all of her information. I can make any sort of changes. Everything here can be future dated, so I can start to date. Sorry about that, a little bit of bump or a little hiccup there. So one of the great things about this is that, again, as I was mentioning, everything here with the employee record can be future dated. So if you find out that somebody's going to be leaving the organization, you can go through and you can complete that transaction today, and the system will be able to automatically kick off that process for that date that you assign. So if we find out that Emily is maybe going to be leaving at the end of the month, we could go through and we could make that transaction for that specific day. Now, each of these different fields is going to be editable for those people who have that level of security. And again, you can see here that as the HR manager, I have access now into a whole host of details. Everything from tracking their government issued IDs to tracking things like all of the details that surround this person's job. We could make adjustments here. We could, add sort of additional information. And this goes through all of the different things, like tracking things like workplace incidents. If we had some sort of OSHA event, we have a compliant OSHA tracking that we have built into the system. Tracking personal information on employees, so education, government-issued IEDs, license, certifications. You have the ability to be able to track all of this information and report upon it for all of your direct reports. Finally, one of the great things I love about this is that everything within the system is going to be auditable. So you can see here that I have every detail on an employee, when it was changed, what it was, and who made that change. So in this case, if we're looking at the first thing that we have on our list here, it's going to be something like compensation. You can see that it was changed by Catherine Glass, and it happened just about 5 years ago. So all of the different things that happen to an employee record are going to have a log, an audit log to it, so you can see exactly who made what changes and when, and always be able to go back and have access to that information. Now, all of this information is going to be what manages our employees. Now, the other side of it is making sure that we're going to be able to pay our employees and pay them correctly. So we can track all of the employee details. We could manage the employee through the entire lifecycle process. The other half of what we offer as SuitePeople is going to be payroll. And here we can go in and we can start to complete the payroll process. Now, we're not going to complete every step of reporting and going through and looking at everything here today because we're a little bit more limited on time. But what I can show you quickly is how easy it is for us to be able to process payroll. If you're leveraging NetSuite's timesheets, your details are already going to be in there for any hourly employees. We also have some preferred partners as well for time and attendance. But if you have an outstanding time system that you'd like to keep, it's very easy just to be able to go through and you can import time for any sort of hourly employees that you might have. Once we have that time information in, if it's already built in through the timesheets or a third party, it becomes really easy to walk through the steps of creating our payroll. Now, we haven't reinvented payroll by any means, but what we have done is try to make it as easy as possible to complete the process through going in and having all of this information at your fingertips, built-in reports, and access to be able to quickly make any changes without having to go all the way back out through the system. So what you'll notice here is that we're currently calculating pay. This is going to be calculating any sort of deductions, any sort of earnings, and it's going to give us the updates that we need so we can go in and see if we have any outliers in this process. We'll have the ability to be able to view any sort of variances in our hourly reports. We'll be able to see any sort of new employees that we might have in the batch, and we can also see any employees who might have zero pay. On top of all of this, we also have the ability to be able to go through and filter by a variance amount. So from a payroll perspective, we know that there's going to be changes week to week, especially if we have hourly employees. So we could assign a filter here that could show us if we have any employees with a greater variance than, maybe 4%. And so I can filter this accordingly. Now, when we're taking a look at this, and we might catch some sort of data that was off. So in this case here, we have an employee who did not receive pay this pay period. So rather than having to go back out, re-enter hours, I'm able to do all of my changes directly here in the system. In this case here, I can make an adjustment to add time to this employee's paycheck. And that will make sure that we're doing an auto calculation for just this one employee rather than having to do it for all of our employees. So if this case, for some reason, Christian happened to miss that pay period or that time entry, we can go through and we could make that adjustment. And you'll see here that, again, if you have 100 or 200 employees, rather than having to wait, 5 minutes for this to do the new calculation, it's only going to require me to update just the one employee that we made that change to. And then I'll be able to proceed. So now that we've gone through, we've made our adjustments, we have, completely processed and calculated our payroll, we can come back to this at any point in time to be able to commit it. I can go and run additional reports. There's a whole host of pre-built payroll reports for you where you can start to compare calculated versus current. You can run and view for previous months just to make sure that everything's going to look in line. And then at that point in time, once we feel comfortable to be able to go back in and process, it's going to take us right back to the step that we just left off, and I can go ahead and I can commit this payroll batch. Now, the most important thing about this is that this is built in NetSuite. This is going to automatically update your GL. So no more uploading content to your GL. It's going to automatically flow directly in to your accounting. So you're now going to be able to go in and take a live look on this as soon as this commits. So making it so it's one system, truly integrated, all built, connected together, and there's no need to have to push or pull data. And then this can be slice and dice, however, that you are currently distributing this information to those different accounts. So now that we've committed our payroll, we can take a look at our summary, we can take a look at our paychecks, we can look at any sort of tax withholdings or expenses, third-party payments, and then the net pay. There won't be any fees because all of that is going to be included with the cost that is given to you up front. And then finally, being able to take a look at that GL impact. So instantaneously, I can go in, I can view this from any employee and immediately see what sort of GL impact and how this has been broken down across the entire organization. So just like that, it's automatically flowing through back into your GL. And then if we want to take a look at any sort of impact changes that we might have, we also have that ability. So again, we're taking a quick look at things today. This is a very high-level look at HR as well as payroll. And we have a couple other things we want to show you. But from a demonstration standpoint, that's what we had planned to cover, just giving you an idea of how easy it is, how well connected it is into your NetSuite platform. But we have a few more slides we'd like to wrap up on. So I'll just pause briefly here, and I'll let David pick back up with the PowerPoint.
All righty. Thank you, Julian. So kind of the next step that we want to talk about is, what we would call a quote unquote sneak peek. So Julian's going to kick us off here. What we're going to run through is something that we're really excited about, something that, we've been asked about, something that's been in development for quite some time, and that's our performance management module. I think this is going to be something that everyone on this call is going to leave here with some excitement, because this is probably one of the biggest differentiators now that SuitePeople has to any other competitor out there. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Julian, I'll toss it over to you to kick us off.
All right, thanks so much, David. So one of the things, again, like we just saw with the ability to be able to integrate throughout the entire system, it's something we call sweetness. So how do we connect performance into all of these other features and functionality that you might be leveraging already? And one of those things that we've been continuously asked by our customers is to, help to roll out a performance evaluation process that can be able to tie those things together. So we wanted to make sure that we were delivering performance that accommodated the traditional performance process, but also was able to bring in and make it so we can have data-empowered decisions to be able to recognize our employees. So David, if you'll just go to the next screen. So with that, taking a look at performance management, it's more than just a one-time performance review. So many times we have it so that the review is a one-time static process that really just gets stacked onto the manager's desk. We wanted to make sure that this is something that we can have it so it's going to be much more dynamic, much more connected together and holistic throughout the year. So bringing in both parties, as employees as well as managers, so that they can work hand in hand to be able to capture all of the successes our employees are having throughout the year. So tying this all together into making it a more holistic performance management process, rather than just having it as a performance review where it's a one-time process. And we'll talk a little bit more about this as we continue forward. Dave, you go to the next screen. So how do we leverage this and how do we build into the sweetness? So right now we're looking a little bit at the art of the possible. Some of these have already been pre-built metrics that have already been created, but being able to leverage all of those different features that you're already leveraging within NetSuite. So if you currently have something like the CRM in place, and if you have salespeople, we can bring in those sales results directly into our goals that will auto-populate throughout the year so that we can see how people are progressing. So if you have a sales rep who has a target of selling 10 deals throughout the year, at any point in time, I can take a look into the goal management side of things, and I can see exactly where they're at. So if they're at 8 goals, we can go through, we can take a look at this together, and managers and employees can start to have those conversations. If you go to the next slide. Now, all of these are going to be something that, again, can be customized based off of your organization through a series of saved searches. But we right now have 12 that are out of the box. This is something that will continue to grow. And as the performance management continues to blossom here. But right now we have things that are driven by sales. We have general, like things like kudos. So you can set a performance goal that is tied to how many kudos an employee receives. Things tied to services. So if you have customer service and also projects. So looking at things like cases and also things like billable hours. So all this is already pre-built today and can be pulled across your system to be able to populate, but you again have that ability to have those more configured or customized performance metrics for your employees. Now, the performance management lifecycle, so we talked a little bit about this, and again, rather than that one time a year just performance review, we wanted to make it so it's really that life cycle. The first step is aligning goals. So creating goals that are measurable. So again, pulling back those performance metrics across the different areas of the system, but they also don't have to be measurable. It might be helping to onboard someone or engaging more with other team members. These are things that you can't really put a metric on. So creating goals that are both aligned to data as well as aligned to the development of employees. These are all something that can be built, worked on throughout the year. Both feedback can be given by the employee as well as the manager. Everything is time-stamped, and it helps to be able to populate into those performance reviews. So as we engage throughout the year, both, again, managers and employees can create, manage, and edit those goals to make sure that we are in the right trajectory. So making sure that those goals are something that are, can be accomplished, or again, things change throughout the year. We might have to pivot and, sunset some of the goals that we were working on. But at the end of the year, all of those goals are going to be populated into the performance review. So again, something that, we do still have that standard process, but instead of trying to remember something that happened 11 months prior, we can take a look at those goals we worked on throughout the year to be able to reflect on that review. Both employees as well as managers have the ability to create those self-evaluations, which ultimately can have approval from the HR team as well. If you go to the next slide, please. So taking a look at the performance management goals, again, I mentioned here, they have the ability to be able to tie directly to performance metrics. So those are going to be data-driven items. Now, they don't have to. So they can be something that is very much so, more a softer goal that is designed to focus on the development of an employee. But at the end of the day, there's going to be really kind of 3 different stages. There's planned, so something that we've set in the future to kick off. There's something that's in progress that we're working on currently. And then there's going to be our closed goals. So we can see all three of these different columns at once, so we know what we have coming up, what we're working on, and what we've already completed. Now, you'll also notice that there's some color there, and that's what we call the mood. And this isn't how an employee is feeling emotionally, but rather how they're feeling about their goal. So as an employee is looking at this, or a manager's looking in on this, they can quickly see if this is something that they feel comfortable they're going to complete, or if this is something that maybe they're struggling with, and based off of the mood, they can quickly go in and review and see if it's something they need to add some more time or resources to. Now, all of these different goals, again, are going to populate for the next slide, which is going to be the performance review process. And this is going to be where you can see all of this coming together. On the right-hand side, you have all of those goals that have been populated. And then on the left-hand side, you have an area for reflection over the year. This is designed to be easy, and it's designed to be user-friendly, so it's not going to be too burdensome and have that drop-off of adoption. But at the end of the day, all this is going to be reportable, and you can start to review how your employee workforce is continuing to progress throughout the organization. So this is something that is currently available. It's something that just was released, and we are happy to set up some time to show more from a demonstration standpoint. It's just we probably didn't have enough time to be able to cover everything today. But we are happy to jump in and to show a live demonstration at any point in time. And David, awesome. That's everything I.
We did see some questions come in the chat, and we're going to give a few minutes for everyone that wants to throw some more questions in the chat, and Julian and I are happy to answer those.